All right, and we are live. So, welcome. My name is Danelle Xavier.
Hey guys, my name is Charlie Xavier.
And this is the vPhase International Health Conference, and we hold this conference every second Wednesday of each month. So welcome. So you're probably wondering what the International Health Conference is, and I'll let you actually explain what it is, Charlie.
Yeah, of course. One of the reasons why we formulated the International Health Conference is because at the moment there's a lot of negativity going on in the world. There's a lot of different things going on, lots of different dynamics. I'm sure we all know what they are. And I think it's really important to try to do something positive in times like this. So this is why we've done it. We want to create a platform for people to speak, share knowledge, for people to learn, and for everybody just to share some positivities. That's the main ethos behind this International Health Conference.
Absolutely. And so we're very happy to have every last one of you attending from all over the world because we're all online. All right, so we are going to introduce our first guest speaker, and also a very, very important coach in our cleansing community, Tracy Randolph. If you'd like to unmute and introduce yourself and what you're going to speak about, and I'll let you take it away from there and mute.
Sure, absolutely. Hey everyone, it's good to see everyone here today. I am Tracy Randolph, also known as the Reset Coach, and I'm going to be talking about the link between food and mental health. So I'm going to share my screen. And you guys can let me know when you can see that. Just give me a thumbs up. Can everybody see my screen? Everybody except me can see my screen. Because it was down below. But welcome everyone again. As I said, I am the Reset Coach, Tracy Randolph, and I believe that every day is an opportunity for us to reset. I am a mom, a certified health and life coach, a personal trainer, an author, and a speaker. I am a breast cancer survivor turned lover of just full body, mind, and spirit wellness, and I help women change their mindset to change their body to get fit and love the woman that they see in the mirror. So let's get into it. So I'm just going to move this down a little bit. Here we go. That way I can see everything. All right, so this link between mental health and nutrition. So as I was diving into this, I looked on mentalhealth.org, and this is actually in the UK, but it says the importance of good nutritional intake at an early age is explored in multiple studies, including a review that was done in 2014, which found that poor diet with high levels of saturated fat, which we all know is not good for you, refined carbohydrates, something else that's not good for you, and processed foods, which is horrible for you, right, is all linked to poor mental health in children and adolescents. Think about the kids, and when they start eating these processed foods, these saturated fats, what builds up in their body over the years. And they only did this study on children and adolescents, but just imagine what gets built in your body if you start eating that early and then you become an adult and all of this is built up in your body and what that can do to your mental health. And we'll get into that in a little while. There are some more recent studies that also have revolved around the connection between a healthy diet and mood disorders like anxiety and depression. And there's a lot of studies revolved around anxiety and depression. This one in particular comes from the Center for Anxiety Disorders. But there's a lot of psychiatrists and researchers, scientists out there now, making that connection between food and how it affects your mental health. So when you think about a healthy diet and what it can do for your brain, it boosts your development. It changes the proteins and enzymes in your brain to help increase the neurotransmitters. And neurotransmitters is how the brain is communicating with itself, right? How you're thinking, how you're feeling, all of that comes from your brain. And those connections between your brain cells happens when you have healthy brain proteins, which comes from your food. So increasing gut bacteria, and this promotes a healthy gut and biome, which decreases the inflammation And it's known to help your cognition and your mood, which then affects that mental health, right? That mood, that depression, that anxiety is what happens when you have a lack of the right vitamins and minerals in your bloodstream that goes to your brain. And then a healthy diet also raises serotonin levels through various food enzymes, which improves your mood. So serotonin, and if you guys were on the last health conference that we did, you'll remember that Nadia talked about serotonin as well. Well, serotonin is that happy food, it's that happy chemical. It's that happy chemical that improves your mood. And when your serotonin levels are low, then you can suffer from depression. There will be some mood disorders that are happening. And as we know now, that 90% of the production of our serotonin is in our gut, is in our digestive tract. So most people thought that serotonin is produced in the brain, which it is, but 90% of that we now know is produced in our gut. So there's so much of a connection between our health, our gut health, the food that we intake, and our mental health. And we're going to continue to talk about that as we go further. So what are some key vitamins and minerals that are linked to mental health disorders? Well, there's a few key ones that I wanted to mention, especially now as we are going through COVID-19, because some of these play a role. Zinc in particular plays a role in our physical health as well, but it also plays a role in our mental health. So it's known that low levels of zinc can cause depression. And again, like I said, a lot of the studies are around depression and anxiety, but we are learning more as we go along, and as food is being studied and researched and how it affects the mental health, they are discovering now that it does affect some of the other mental disorders that are out there. And we'll talk about that soon as well. So omega-3s are also great minerals that you need for your brain health that help improve your mood, your memory, and your thinking. Then there's B12, which is known to, if there's low levels of B12, it increases the risk of cognitive decline. And it also has been known now to aid in Alzheimer's disease if there's low levels of B12. And then there's iron deficiency, which iron deficiency and anemia play a part also in depression. And then there's vitamin D. Vitamin D is a big one for me because vitamin D contributes to a lot. If there's a lack of vitamin D, it contributes to a lot of health problems. But they're now saying that vitamin D deficiency is also associated with depression and schizophrenia in adults. What I have found out there, they haven't done the studies on vitamin D in the children thus far, what I've seen, but they are saying that it is associated with depression and schizophrenia in the adults. So nutritional psychiatry, so because of all of this, because of all of these studies, psychiatrists are now finding that it is just as important to talk about food and what food means to your brain and what that does to your mental health, just as much as how it affects your physical health. So this nutritional psychiatry now is something that I believe they started back in 2015 from what I've seen with the Harvard Medical University and Harvard Health. They talk about this happening in 2015. So it's something that's fairly new. It's only 5 years old. And now they're studying food and how it affects our mental health. So nutritional psychiatry now is an approach that uses food and supplements in the treatment of mental health conditions. So back in 2015, there was a group of 18 scientists that concluded that diet is just as important to psychiatry as it is to, other medical professional doctors out there, cardiology, endocrinology, and other medical professionals. So in light of that, they decided in 2017 to do a 12-week study that was conducted on 67 people. Now, this is not a large number of people, and I don't know why it was 67 as opposed to, 70, 80, 100. But they picked 67 people that had depression, who also had poor eating habits. So they had unhealthy diets. And they put these people into two groups, and they said, okay, for this one group, we're going to treat them with dietary support. And for the other group, we're going to treat them with social support, meaning, psychiatry. And what some people think about is like laying someone on their couch. But they decided that they were going to treat them with social support. And what they found at the end of this study was that 32%, there was a 32% remission rate of those on the dietary support versus an 8% remission rate of those on the social support. So this is really key, even though this wasn't a wide study, and I hope that they are conducting a lot more studies like this, but even though this wasn't a wide study, it is really key to note that they knew that these people already were suffering from depression, and they also knew before they started that these people already had unhealthy diets. So when they changed the diets, when they took the group that they did dietary support with, and they changed their diets, they began to change their mental state of mind. Remission, right, is when you're coming out of whatever condition that you have, when you're out of that condition. So for those people to go into remission, and when you think about the disparity between 32% and 8%, that's huge. So if that can be conducted on, a lot more people with depression, and if we can get the word out there to people to eat healthier, we can eliminate the depression and the anxiety that's happening in the world right now. So that it's definitely helpful to treat yourself with good food for multiple reasons, but now we know that it's also linked to mental health. So because we are here in the vPhase Body Cleanse community, what does all of this have to do with cleansing? And what does it mean when you talk about cleansing and gut health and mental health? Well, we know that cleansing clears the toxicity to allow for proper absorption of vitamins and minerals. And we also know that absorption happens in the small intestines. So that absorption and cleaning out our gut will allow us to mitigate the risk of inflammation. It's going to reduce the oxidative stress, and it's going to allow for that healthy production of that serotonin that we talked about earlier. So when you think about your gut health and when you think about cleansing is going to allow us to clear out so that we can accept the vitamins and nutrients and all of the minerals that we need. We talked about those key vitamins that help play a role in our mental health, and the lack thereof of those vitamins and what it causes for the brain when we talk about the zinc and the depression and the vitamin D with the schizophrenia and the depression as well. So when you think about cleansing, and we know that we need to clear out that toxicity, if absorption is happening in our small intestines and we want to get those vitamins and minerals in from the good foods that we are ingesting, we need to be able to absorb those vitamins. So this is where cleansing plays a key role in helping with the gut health and the mental health, because if the vitamins and minerals can't get in, if the body can't absorb them, if there's so much build up in our small intestines that we're not allowed to absorb, then we still are going to have those mental health problems that we mentioned earlier, and that depression and that anxiety will still exist if we don't allow our bodies to clear out. So this is where that relationship comes in. It's going to be great to be able to reduce the oxidative stress that we put on our bodies if we are cleansing, and once we are releasing and allowing our body to take in what it needs, then that mental health is going to start to go away, and the cleansing is going to aid in that even faster than if we just changed our diets.
Awesome.
So
is that a wrap?
Huh?
Is that a wrap? You got quiet on us. Okay.
Oh no.
Go right ahead.
Okay. So let's just talk about what's happening now, because there are a lot of reports out there now that are talking about mental health is going to be the next pandemic because of COVID-19, because people have so much anxiety and depression around COVID-19, because of the economic meltdown and all of the financial problems that are happening, because of social distancing and isolation, because of stress on our healthcare workers and all of our essential workers. And then there's no outlet for people sometimes. But then the big one, because of what we're talking about today, when we're talking about the relationship between food and mental health, the big one is the poor eating habits that people are adapting during isolation. I was actually outside, me and my son were walking, and I saw my neighbor's garbage. And and she has 3 kids, but it was a lot of sugary drinks and a lot of processed foods. We see all the boxes out there that she had ordered from one of the major stores, one of the major chain stores. But when you think about the fact that people are isolated and all of these poor eating habits are coming up, because people really, food is usually a soother, and it comforts people. And if you're not getting in the right food, people are sitting at home right now and they're eating all of the wrong things that are going to then aid in poor physical health and poor mental health. So when you think about, is mental health going to be the next pandemic, they're really predicting right now that we're going to have some really high health mental issues coming out of COVID-19, coming out of the pandemic. And I would say they already exist, honestly. I would say that they're already there. It's just that we don't know too much about it yet because people are not really social and they're not interacting as much. But I would say that they exist right now, and that people really need help in changing their diet and changing that mental state of mind. So what do you guys think about this? Do you think that we're going to have this big mental health issue as the next pandemic, or as, just a major concern after coming out of COVID-19?
Well, definitely, I think the mental health issue has already begun, because they've already had suicides that have happened associated with the lockdown. Isolation is not the thing you want to do with people that are mentally unstable. So that's been in effect and happening since I think probably the second day of lockdown. People are scared, it's like a fear that's going around, and they're isolated. They can't get to the people they need to talk to. So yeah, they're already happening.
I think especially with the people that they live alone, especially elderly people that live alone, that are isolated anyway, and having these additional precautions put on their lives, I think that a lot of elderly people will naturally develop mental health issues from the measures that have been taken at the moment. And also anybody that lives alone, really. I'm sure it's very difficult if you don't have anybody around you to have to deal with a situation like this. And I always forget that people generally get very scared. I don't. I'm quite a calm person. But I forget that people get really frightened and really scared by the things that are happening at the moment. So that, that terror, that paranoia is very visible, especially now that I've gone back out into humanity and I've traveled back to the UK. So I saw some funny stuff in the airport. There were people with lab coats on, big, like the gloves that you wear in the hazmat suits that come all the way up to the elbows, to stop radiation. Those, a face mask, and then a full screen, and then the whole family had the same matching outfit on. And then every 2 minutes they were stopping, putting the solution on their hands, and it was just crazy to watch. Yeah. So that anxiety is going to do a lot, in the long term, I expect.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Anybody else? Nobody else? Go ahead.
Is there time to share? Just a little bit.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
I think it's very, very important problem that you moved here facing, and of course, mental health goes alongside with physical health. And everything starts in your mind first. So all these people, of course, are exposed to so much negative information from the world, from other people, and they live in this fear-based society, and that really affects the mental health. All this negative information, thinking, and environment. So the best thing we can do is just to remove ourselves from negative environment that doesn't serve us, and that will really help us to heal and find the right balance in mental and physical health as well.
Absolutely. And you said something so key, like finding that balance, to be able to teach people about diet and food and what it means, and cleansing and what that means to both their physical and their their mental health is so key for people to be able to find that balance, because there are ways for us to protect ourselves. Like Charlie talked about, that anxiety and that paranoia. Like if people really got educated and really took a look at what's really happening out there, and what they can do for themselves to protect themselves. Things like this are so key, you know. Diet and cleansing are so key, because like what's happening right now with COVID-19, like it's a virus. So we need to protect ourselves when it comes to what we're ingesting, and what we're taking in, and then what we're allowing ourselves to release. So when I looked at nutritional psychiatry, they talked about how now it's not just understanding that diet aids in depression and anxiety. They're talking about now schizophrenia, bipolar disorders, ADHD, which we know, right? So there's so many different things, autism even. They're saying that, you know, diet would help mitigate autism as well. So, I mean, there's so many things that we can reduce the risk of, because they want to either prevent these things from happening, be able to treat them. But, you know, we need to mitigate these things, and we can do that with diet and cleansing.
Yeah, absolutely. I was literally just reading about the same. I've been reading some medical journals recently because I'm just educating myself on the gut, the heart, and the brain. And I was reading the exact same thing. So it does come from the diet, but it's the toxicity in the gut that can then have this knock-on effect. And it's crazy how you could have something that is relatively simplistic in nature, well, seemingly simplistic in nature, that can have such a dramatic effect. It's crazy, especially when you're talking about schizophrenia and even autism. You know, that is to do with gut toxicity, or can be to do with that rather. It's not the only diagnosis, of course, but so yeah, it's crazy. And I was literally just learning about this about 4 days ago. So yeah, absolutely, I'm up on that.
There's also a connection with what Charlie's talking about and what you've actually went over. There's a connection with plaque as well, being one of the culprits in the brain, in the heart, and also in our gut. So the fact that our diet needs to be, for one, we have to train our mental to accept that as well, but everything starts in the gut, because we need to clean the gut out to start cleaning the heart out and the brain, because all of that plaque that's coming in to our body and building up over time, obviously it's coming through our mouth, it's going straight to our gut first, and then it's redistributing itself through our system that leads to our heart, to our brain. So no matter what, we need to you know, be educated on the fact that there can be these illnesses caused by a buildup of plaque as well, which then again relates to your diet. So it's like a vicious cycle, you know, until you make it a positive cycle.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I was actually just reading that as I was going through this too, like how the brain builds up that plaque as well. And you think about like the amount of time that it takes for you to build up so much plaque in your gut and in your brain, but it depends on what you're eating, right? It may not take that long at all, depending on what you're eating on a regular basis. But just to think about, you know, my age and over the course of my lifespan, and before finding vPhase, like how much got built up before I changed my eating habits, like how much of that has been built up. And when you think about when I talked about the report on the kids, when you think about if you're starting that early, right, feeding them crap, the buildup and the effects that it has, and no wonder we have so many kids that they're diagnosing with ADHD, right? And I'm going to say it that way, only because I don't think every kid that is diagnosed with ADHD actually has ADHD, but for all the kids that they're diagnosing with ADHD, and how we can just turn that around so easily by changing something as simple, like you said, Charlie, it seems so simple, but something as simple as your diet.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the answer to that and most things is very simple, and it's to do with what you put in your mouth. It's to do with the diet. And I think that's the greatest trick that's been played on humanity is completely brainwashing us into allowing ourselves to put things that are just so toxic inside of our bodies. I mean, think of something like Coca-Cola, for instance. Look at what it is. I mean, come on, look at what that is. That is going to shred all of the gut microbiome. You can clean rust off a car with it. So as soon as you put that in your gut, it is going to shred absolutely everything, the whole ecosystem within the gut. And people drink, you know, a couple of liters of that a day sometimes, you know, the people that are really addicted to it.
Oh, yeah.
And because things have flashy marketing campaigns, and they're put in a certain light, like McDonald's or, you know, any of the chains that you find, people buy into it, but they should know better. Like I always say, ignorance is not bliss. So just because you didn't know doesn't make you any less responsible for the mess that's caused by accepting certain industries, by accepting certain things to just run rampant within society. So I really think that we're at a point now where people are a lot more conscious. I mean, there's still a bit of a fine line, because you can find people that are completely unconscious, and it is so scary to witness, to have a conversation with somebody that just doesn't know any better.
Yeah. But
yet they're putting things that are very toxic inside of their bodies, and a simple Google search could give them the answers.
Yeah.
So you know, it's unconscious awareness, and also lethargy that I find incredibly dangerous.
Yeah.
You know, and because then we then begin to advocate things into society, and it's not just us it affects, it's our children, our children's children. You know, these things are generational. Think about how long Coca-Cola's been around for over 100 years.
Yeah.
Coca-Cola had a really good run.
Yeah.
You know, they've messed up a few generations.
And they had like actual cocaine in them too.
Yeah, they
right?
started off by having cocaine in it
Wow.
originally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they should bring that back. Maybe I buy it then.
Okay, I'm just gonna delete this part.
Even think about some of the tests that people have done on McDonald's, where you see like the burgers just after like they've been sitting there for months, and I think people have even done it for like years, and the burgers just don't go bad. Like they look the same.
Yeah,
they don't mold.
So imagine
That's
that's sitting in your body.
Ew. Yeah, I have, you know, I'm so happy since cleansing, you know, and I'm happy to say, I think I'm going on my 4th year now, no McDonald's, and I'm so happy about that. Because I tell you, that triple cheeseburger was my thing.
Kimberly knows all about that. She knows all about that.
Yeah, I'm
Don't
guilty.
frown at me. I didn't know any better, okay?
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm very, it just, you know, now I smell it, and it just, you go past McDonald's now, it's disgusting. It stinks so bad. So I'm happy about that. Like, that's what cleansing does. It changes your, I guess, not your perception, but your sense of everything.
Yeah.
That's like processed food, though, how it really can affect your body. A lot of people, when they take it out and then they go back to it, they're like, oh my God, I can't believe this made such a difference. I know because of my digestive issues and not being able to process meat or any food at all. And it was until I took it all out of my diet that I seen exactly how it affected my body.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
And I think people just lack knowledge. They do. So I'm so happy that, you know, vPhase, they do the all around, you know, the cleansing, the mental health, the cooking. I mean, it's such an impact in the world.
Absolutely. And really what we're trying to do right now, this particular format right now that we're doing, well, we're going to be broadcasting this to like nearly 500,000 people in the very near future. So this is what we're preparing ourselves for. Is obviously you guys that are in the know that we've just secured a couple of deals, and we're going to be broadcasting and marketing to up to 500,000 people. So you know, we can have a real impact, and it's really amazing that we've actually got the format together now.
Yeah.
And you know, there's a very, very smooth transition. So you know, we're on the precipice of the roller coaster. You know.
Okay, so Tracy, I know that you have to go. That was like that was very awesome.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that, Tracy. It's really well put together.
It was beautiful.
Thank you, thank you. I'll be listening.
Yeah, and very informative. What'd you say?
I said I'll be listening.
Okay, yeah, I know. No worries.
Yeah, no problem. That's fine.
Thank you, though. I really enjoyed the slides and all the information. That was very, you know, so we don't know everything, you know. All we know is what we've researched, and there's so much information out there that you can't know everything, you know. So I think that these international health conferences are very important because, for one, it still educates us. There might be something that we've missed, you know, and learn from this. So I learned something today. So that's all that matters. Take that away, you know.
Awesome.
All right, so we'll let you go ahead and jump to your meeting, Tracy. I know you'll be on listening in, and then we'll move on to Shauna.
Sounds good. Thank you.
There she
You're
is.
welcome.
Mute myself. Hello, everybody. Sorry, it took me
Hi
a while
there.
to get on. I've managed though, so here I am.
We're so happy to
Yeah,
have you.
thank you. Welcome.
Great to see everyone, and really good, lovely Tracy. Her presentation really good, and it leads on kind of really nicely with what I was going to speak about.
Absolutely.
Well.
Do I need to make you a co-host? Do you have slides?
No, I'm just going to be talking. I have
No
some
worries.
bits I'm going to be looking at, so I will flick them up. But basically, I wanted to touch on leading on from the mental health aspect, which I think Tracy's covered very well. There's a few bits I'll add to that. But what we were just saying just now with what's happened in our culture, with the kind of McDonald's culture and Coca-Cola culture, is I think it's kind of like a reflection of our consciousness. And we're kind of living in a bit of a depraved society where what we are being offered is really kind of a low consciousness, and with our food being what's termed as food, it's not really food at all. It's sub food, and we're supposed to, you know, nourish ourselves and our children with that. You know, as a result, you're getting that impacted directly on people's mental health, behavior, emotional health. I think it literally just reflects itself in society. And I've been also doing quite a lot of research lately, and the statistics show now that they've kind of measured by girls and for some reason it's girls particularly, but by the age of 12, you're looking at, in America, 1 in 4 having an autoimmune disorder. So that's pretty high. And that's pretty scary, and that is all stemming from our Big Mac culture, you know. So it's quite something to think about. So, okay, let me just flick up my notes here. So, I was going to talk today about food and brain chemistry, linking it with the vagus nerve, and also crash dieting and how that can affect us, and just a couple of stories really linking in with that as examples. So it is really fascinating because the gut health and the gut brain connection is really gaining momentum at the moment, and it's really becoming a topic that is being, you know, brought to the fore by nutritionists and doctors. who are really researching this area. And so it's creating a very accessible education for us all. And there is a very obvious link between the gut and the brain, because if we didn't have that going on, then we would be able to be poisoned by whatever we consumed, for instance. So they do have to be talking to each other. And so the gut has an entire neural network in the same way that the brain does. And it also has the same neurotransmitters in the same way that the brain does. So it's also got its very own nervous system. So it's almost like an entire body of intelligence, as well as being sort of 70% of our immune system, which is really so critical. I mean, my take on a lot of this what's happened with the COVID is that people have responded in such a way, you know, got very, very sick because they were already sick, even though they're not being seen as being sick. I think if you're on a very low frequency diet, and you're not just nutritionally, you know, well, then your immune system is going to be very compromised. So the gut literally thinks, as it has, you know, it produces these neurotransmitters. It literally has, you know, cells in the same way that the brain does, the same kind of matter exists there. And also the main way that the two speak to each other, the brain and the gut, is through the vagus nerve. And the vagus nerve runs from the base of the brain all the way down through to the gut, and it also reaches into every single organ. So that way, information can be passed very quickly between the brain and the gut and all the different organs. So for example, if you were to ingest a poison, then your vagus nerve would immediately tell your thymus and your spleen to start producing, to start an immune response. So it's like the main highway. It kind of reminds me, some years ago when I was still a student, some friends and we all got together and decided to have like a dinner party and a party. And the friend that invited us had made this vegetarian brinjal moussaka thing. And she was very proud of her cooking. But little did we know, but the next morning she came out and said, you know, she'd had a terrible night, been up all night being sick. And it turned out she was reacting to the brinjals. And she said, all I could think about was brinjal, brinjal, brinjal. So for me, that just said, it was an illustration of how, you know, how our gut will immediately tell us, and in this case, you know, was telling her what it was that was kind of poisoning her, or that she was reacting to, so that we would know in the future. So obviously this is a, you know, something that's developed through our evolving. I think as well, it's really important to see how our diets have changed from, you know, in the past 100 years, just from a base level of farming, because, you know, prior to 100 years ago, all of our farming was done organically. And with the First and Second World Wars, brought in chemical farming. So the chemicals were really byproducts of the war. You find the artificial fertilizers were byproducts of bomb making, and the pesticides came from the bioweapons that were used for gassing. Quite awful to think, but this was this is how they were made. So, and we are still using these chemicals, obviously to a massive degree, and we are around about 60% we've lost our topsoil or something like that. And also the nutrition is really low. So our foods are sprayed. This really affects our hormones as well, how our entire endocrine system functions. It impacts on our immune system because we're always toxic from the chemicals that are sprayed on our foods. And then the animals that are, have been, used to be just bred on farms and a very kind of local level. That's all ramped up to sort of factory scale farming, where the treatment of the animals is, terrible, inhumane, and also they're pumped full of hormones and antibiotics. So just even on that very base level of so-called real food, we're already ingesting huge amounts of toxins as well. So these major lifestyle changes, which, and all these toxins which massively compromise our bodies, it's all considered normal, unfortunately. And when you're outside of that so-called normal, you basically have to pay for it. And it just really shouldn't be so. But that is how it is at the moment. But back to the gut. So our gut bacteria, of course, is, massively compromised in all of this. And as mentioned, so we have all of these neurotransmitters, which also happen in the gut. Serotonin being one of them. I heard just now that up to 90% of the serotonin produced in the body is actually produced in the gut, which I thought was amazing. And we also know that vitamin D3, I think Tracy spoke about that briefly, is the hormone precursor which enables us to produce serotonin. So, which is why we need to supplement in the winter months. Now, I heard just a classic example of this, like living in the UK here, where during the winter months, about 8 months of the year, it's like overcast. And so there's a very high level of what you call seasonal affective disorder, SAD. I always feel it every winter here, and I certainly have to supplement. But particularly people of color, like the Afro-Caribbeans, are now experiencing, or what they're being termed as a mental health condition, depression. They're experiencing depression and then being put on antidepressives. Instead of this being viewed by the doctors as, as a nutritional issue, it's seen as a mental health issue. So this is like also what Tracy was saying, where there's this, this place where, because I think there's a massive problem in medicine where doctors are not trained in nutrition at all. It's not something that, passes through their education. So there's a gap between knowledge on nutrition and what the body requires, and then, what's seen as a result of something in terms of mental health. So you can be really low in, these essential minerals. Magnesium is another one. Low magnesium definitely is a mood suppressant. Low in magnesium, this contributes to depression as well. So these things are not being addressed via our medical fraternity because they're just not talking to each other at all. Something else, as far as it goes with children, and as a mother, I think some of us here who are mothers, is quite a concern for us. Again, as what is accepted as normal, that's just on the shop shelves. Things have improved, in the last 20 years, definitely here in the UK. They have stripped away a lot of the E numbers, excitotoxins as they're known, as these are triggers for ADHD and ADD. Many of them have been stripped away out of sweets, which is a good thing. Not so much in imported sweets, generally not at all. I know they don't have those kind of rules in the US. But the other problem is energy drinks are a massive factor, massive problem for children. And I see it, you know, driving my daughter to school. They hang around outside the shop and they're all going in and out, getting sweets and buying energy drinks before school, which is a massive problem. And there was a movement to try and put a restriction. So there was an age-related restriction in purchasing these drinks at like 18 or something, but that legislator hasn't properly gone through as far as I know. So you have these energy drinks being consumed by kids and it's massively affecting their behavior. There was a study done by the Children's Food Campaign where they surveyed teachers, and 97% of the teachers said that the children were impossible to teach after they had been consuming these energy drinks. So beside the behavioral issues, which are obviously just a reflection of what's, you know, going in, what's in the drinks basically is these very high levels of caffeine. So in one of those small tins, there's something like 50 to 60 grams of sugar, enough of about like two shots of a espresso equivalent caffeine, and then they chuck in taurine as well. And so this kind of extreme concoction hits in on your adrenal glands, or on the adrenal glands, whoever drinks this drink, and then this creates a massive flood in the body, or big reaction in the body, which affects the moods immediately. So one of the things that the behavior that comes out is agitation, restlessness, even aggression can come out of this. Excitability and inability to kind of be still and be calm. And this can also have a really very, very, negative impact on the health side of everything as well, because the adrenals become fatigued. So over a long period of time, you would find, I think, children who are consuming these kind of drinks becoming adrenally fatigued, and then they were going to have treatment for that as well. So big issues around so-called normal and acceptable substances. I was doing some research around wheat, and I came across a doctor who, his name's just gone totally out of my head now, but I can send it through in a moment. I'll check my notes again. And they've been doing some research around wheat, because the way wheat has been bred is that it's changed into this starchy food with very high gluten and high phytates. It's actually genetically modified, but because it was done so long ago, it's not classed as genetically modified anymore. But it's become indigestible, which is why so many people are experiencing bloating and serious side effects just from eating breads and wheat products. And we also have a society that's completely addicted to wheat, especially refined wheat. And so this wheat has been seen to, the chemicals within the wheat have been seen to trigger different responses. I certainly was witness to this some years ago, when my friend's child, who was a celiac, had unwittingly eaten something on a school trip. and he had a complete meltdown. He was maybe 9 years old. So this has been witnessed, and they've done a few studies on this, and they have found that it can trigger autistic outbursts, hallucinations by schizophrenias, manic mania in bipolar disorder, and it also triggers off our opiate drives, which is why, and I had a friend ask me, she says, why do I keep craving pastries and bread and cakes? And this is one of the things that it does, is that it binds to the brain, and it creates these constant cravings for, for more. The other thing that wheat does is that it prevents your ability to absorb zinc, magnesium and calcium, because it binds to it. So, this is obviously going to be, create a nutritional problem. And so many people are very dependent on bread as part of a staple. I mean, I think if you look at the average person, they would say, yep, they've had bread at least twice in that day, sandwich for lunch and, toast for breakfast, or another bread pastry, croissant or something like that. So it's very, very high in our diet, but it's nutritionally, there's just absolutely nothing there. Again, this is just another cultural thing. So I wanted to just touch on a couple of other things. One about, yes, that Tracy mentioned autism. So I was in touch with a lady not too long ago, and she managed to heal her children who were autistic. 2 of her children were in the autistic spectrum, and she did so with using she put them on a raw diet, and she was able to detox them. And I know as well that the GAPS diet, I'm not sure if you've heard of that. GAPS stands for Gut and Psychology Syndrome. And it's all about healing the gut, because there has been found to be a correlation between a leaky gut and a leaky brain. So the membrane around your brain and the membrane around your gut, when they become sort of perforated or stretched and leaky, that then, all of these food things that are meant to digest, they just pass through. And we have a lot of heavy metals going into our bodies because of the high levels of vaccinations going on. It's definitely increased in the UK and Europe, but I know in the United States, you have children being vaccinated 60, 70 times before they're 12, or 18, ridiculous amount. And all of those are bound with aluminium, mercury, you have mercury fillings. So heavy metals, which pass directly through the blood-brain barrier, then are, a major cause of autism. But this can be reversed, which was, I was really interested to hear about that. And it can be reversed. You heal the gut and you detox the brain through cleansing and working with raws and juices and, chlorella, the algae and so on. And slowly, you're able to remove the metals as well. But yeah, I think that's about all for now. Open to questions or chatting.
Well, for one, thank you very much. I thought that was very informative, especially learning about the energy drinks. I've always known about taurine. I learned about that when I was in medical school. and how it just really affects your cardiovascular. And that's very, very scary, especially to find out that there is the youth are, you know, pretty much almost addicted to these caffeine drinks. That's
Yeah.
scary. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think it's a rising problem. I think the most scary thing I see, because I have a teenager, and I banned her from McDonald's from an ethical point of view. Never mind that I said, look, you're higher cut than that. You can go to Pizza Express if you want to, but just don't go to McDonald's, you know. So I don't go, and I've never been. I'm too posh for that. So. Yeah. But I see it with her friends, and that's where they all flood. It's because it's cheap, and it's accessible, and unless something is done on a legislative level where it starts to be that almost like smoking. So you remember in the 90s when they decided, okay, you're not allowed to smoke in the pubs anymore, you know, where they started to say, okay, this is bad for you, and, you know, we're going to put some restrictions. If they started to do that with, you know, sugar, or if they started to do that with, you know, with these type of unhealthy foods, kind of control it more, or have some standards that actually the farming methods are not acceptable. It would raise the price of their food, and then it just wouldn't be so accessible for the youngsters. So all of this and those type of drinks is just unregulated.
We for that to happen, we'd need ethical people in the government. So I've probably got a better chance of seeing a unicorn than that happening. So
yeah, unfortunately, totally agree.
I'm all for seeing unicorns, though. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I think you touched on the brain, the leaky brain. That's crazy. You know what? I mean, I know that our brains can swell. I know that they have to release somehow, but to expand and be leaky like the gut that's crazy. I did not know that.
Yeah, it's the membrane. So this is what I've learned recently, and I've heard, it was just reiterated through. Sorry, my phone's going off. Through some documentaries I've been seeing lately. So there tends to be a correlation between the two. So, you know, basically you've got to heal them both at the same time. So that's kind of as much as I know, really, because
yeah. What do you make of this is a bit abstract, but what do you make of the gut? And we all know that the gut's obviously a brain unto itself, and it does think, but how far and wide does that extend? I'm really interested in the fact that, you know, we have these sayings, you know, I trust my gut, or I had a gut feeling.
totally. Yep,
Yeah.
that has been proved, actually. And
Yeah.
who's speaking about it? I think it was, it might have been Dr. Zach Bush. I've been watching a lot of different doctors lately and specialists in their field. But that, of course, those sayings are not there. I mean, you go to any old sayings, there's always truth in them. And that is definitely it. The whole thing with the gut is really about, the intuitive thing is definitely about being able to sense your survival. And also, you know, we have, so gut is related to our will and our will to live and survive. And then the heart is related to, you know, caring, loving, and the brain is, you know, obviously intelligence. So the three have to connect. So it's definitely that whole thing of, you know, gut feeling is absolutely right. Yeah.
I'm really gut orientated. I have been all my life, but I think I went through a period I didn't listen to my gut feelings, and I got into a lot of trouble as a consequence. And I get a gut feeling, but I also get a lot of information that comes with it. And I always find that whole process really interesting, you know, just to step back and witness that I can literally gather a ton of information on very limited input, just a tiny little bit of input, but I've just got everything and it gets sent up to the brain. There you go. This is the big picture. This is what's happening. And the older I get, I actually learn to just allow that process to happen and go with it. And it never fails me. Never. It's always right.
It's interesting because the more you pay attention to it, the stronger it gets.
Yeah.
But also on the other hand, if you're thinking about just going back to gut health, how people are so removed from their bodies, they're so not in their bodies anymore, they're just abusing their bodies. And obviously life is hard. Life is really hard. So there's every kind of, crutch and, leaning post and coping mechanism that we all reach out for to try and, live this hard life. And it's not just the COVID time. It has been hard for a long time. It's hard. But,
Yeah.
and all of these things are offered to us as a kind of forms of escape in a way. I spoke to someone and she's got a chocolate addiction, or these things form into kind of addictions. So if you eat raw chocolate, then you're all right.
All right, I'm gonna have to find some raw chocolate that I like.
Yeah, that's it. You just eat it raw. There's also some amazing nutrients in the raw cacao, so there might be something you need, But yeah, so it's hard. But if we're so disconnected from our guts, or they're so unhealthy, then we're not going to be able to tap into that intuitive place. Just not all. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say there's a whole other intelligence there that we're disconnected from. So we're not really operating, on full throttle, are we, whatsoever?
No, exactly.
I'm doing a lot of research at the moment into the connection with the brain, the heart, and the gut. Doing a lot of the Heart Math Institute stuff.
Oh, yeah, lovely.
As well. Yeah, that's amazing, and it really puts things into perspective into how important our bodies actually are, and some of the things that are happening right under our noses, but we don't really pay any attention to it because we don't even realize that it's there in the first place.
Yeah. Well, I was just doing a meditation this morning, and I like to meditate with Master Stephen Coe from the Institute of Pranic Healing. So he's this is not uncommon at all. There's always a threefold kind of teaching that goes on. It's like how you act, how you are compassionate, and how you are enlightened, with your intelligence. Those three things all the time. So it makes sense that we would have these three centers, that guide us through life and how we do things, how we are from our hearts, how we live from our hearts, and how we use our intelligence.
Yeah.
So, critical. And the more we learn about them and we tune into them, the better we can.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and then you spoke about, cleansing, and also the items that are injected into our bodies, and especially in the United States through all the vaccinations. And I think that it's very important to know that cleansing actually helps to remove those aluminums and, hazardous materials and that's injected into our children, as well as ourselves. Even when we do the fillings in our teeth, what we did learn through our doctors that were on our panel, and he's passed away now, but just the information that was awesome. His name was Alan Boyer. They said don't remove the filling out of your teeth because that could be even more harmful than just cleansing it out of your blood system, out of your body, out of your intestines, out of your whole entire body. It's better to just cleanse. So that,
yeah.
Go ahead.
No, totally. My dentist said the same thing. I mean, I got a mouthful of metal, which, you know, I had my teeth done on the NHS when I was a kid. So in those days, they put metal in your mouth. And it's, yeah, I kind of want it all out. But I guess they just have to yank my teeth out then. Then they don't have to disturb the filling. But I did once. I had one get loose about, I don't know, but maybe 10 years ago. I can't believe the migraine I got from this cracked filling that started leaking. And I got a serious migraine on my left eye. I remember it was on this side. And my left eye went a bit all fluttery and weird. It was unbelievable. Yeah, I don't know how they ever thought it'd be fine to stick it in people's mouths in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, gold's the safest, right? Or the,
oh yeah, gold.
Yeah. Gold's the safest, and it's not going to cause any harm. It's not toxic, is it? So
It's probably just the most expensive, huh?
yeah, this is it. I've only got one filling. That's all I've got. I'm nearly 40 years old. I've only got one filling, and I got that when I was about 15.
Wow.
Yeah, I've got actually 2.
Yeah. I hadn't actually been to the dentist for about 11 or 12 years. And I went to a private dentist when most of the dentists became privatized. And he was there rubbing his hands. So you've not been to the dentist for over a decade. He thought, all of his birthdays and Christmases has come at once. And he was absolutely gutted because there was nothing wrong with my teeth at all.
I'm so lucky.
Not a single thing.
It's a hereditary thing, and I got my set of teeth from my grandmother. I know she had falsies by the time she was, I don't know, from my first memories of her, she always had falsies, and I'm dreading going down that whole road actually.
Oh, get implants.
Veneers, huh?
Have some implants.
Yeah, I've still got them. But,
You don't want to be putting false teeth into a glass of gin next to your bed at night.
oh gosh. Anyway.
Well, this has been wonderful. I see we have some guests on here, so we appreciate you tuning in. And Shauna and Tracy, you both did such a wonderful job with your presentation, and it was very informative. Like there's a lot of information that you actually touched on. I think autism is just, it's vocalized out there, but I think they have a lot of the wrong information that they're speaking about out there that is detrimental to the reversal of autism and many other disorders. So I think it's just very important that you both actually touched on it like that, and it's very helpful to our audience. So when we do share these conferences, a replay of them, this is something to learn. It's very important to know in conjunction with cleansing and how it actually helps you. There's so many levels we could go on, talking about this, and we'll be here all night.
Well, it's gonna
happen. Oh, go ahead.
The kids are gonna have to be cleansed because the amount of junk that's going into them from young, and this is the thing, is that when you grow a child, you're building the cellular matrix of a person. And then if you're putting the bad stuff in, it's like, what kind of person are you growing? It's just sad, really. There's not much care and not much knowledge. So, with all the other stuff going in as well that the medical fraternity is forcing us to do, there's not much hope for the next generation.
Yeah, it's kind of scary. I mean, our last International Health Conference, learning how your government in the UK is really in charge of the children. Like if they want your children to have what they want them to have, you have no rights. And that is extremely scary. you know,
I think,
so.
yeah, there's definitely, I mean, because you've got the social services, there is it's going to change now. We know it's all going to change. But so far, the UK, compared to even some other European nations, where they have, you know, vaccination, for example, it's not a choice. It's still a choice here in the UK. That's going to change though. But I know in other European countries, it's not a choice at all. So I know Holland has no choice. They make it. So far, from that point of view, we've been okay. I think when a life of a child might be what they call threatened in their eyes, then they bring in social services. It's a slightly different thing. But yeah, just from that point of view, so far we've had freedom to treat our, you know, from that regard at least. But I know it's
Okay.
unfortunately.
Well, that's really good to know. Just very, very important that we protect our children. And like you said, like children do definitely need to start cleansing because they're exposed to so much. You know, I mean, we're already exposed to so much, but then they go to school and they're eating the foods at the school and you don't know what's in the foods at the school, you know, and there's just like so many things that happening on the trips. Like you said, the outbursts that a child can have, almost like they're having I forgot what you called it, like when they're taking whatever the ingredients is from the treats that was given on the trip, and they're just having like a meltdown. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's these triggered responses. But he was a celiac, so celiacs can't take any grain at all. They have extreme leaky gut issue, and they can't take any grain. So what happens is that, you know, immediately it's like very cramping stomach and other things, but also, you know, creates a bit of a mania in the brain, just like crying and just meltdown. Meltdown. So yeah, I mean, and all of this type of gut issues, the gut is constantly being worn down by the high gluten contents in our starches, and also by all the sprays and endless chemicals. Everything we eat, unless you really go for organic, it's just constantly, you know, so it's wearing it down, and there's more and more allergies in kids. Yeah, things like eczema, asthma, and hay fever.
Yeah.
Just, everybody has it now.
Yeah.
Peanut allergy. I mean, when I grew up, no one ever had a peanut allergy. I send my little boy to school. I always forget. No nuts. Oh God, you know, it's just like,
Oh yeah.
Nuts, snacks, and no nuts. Oh God, you know, no one had peanut allergy when I was growing up. It's just like crazy.
That came left side for me too as well. That was just, I've never heard of that until my kids started going to school. So
Yeah.
it's whatever they're doing to the foods that's causing, you know, these allergies and whatnot. It's crazy. It's crazy. So this is where, you know, like Charlie said, a simple Google search. Learn what's going on out there. Don't be lethargic, and just accept that there's more information beyond your home or what's in front of you. It's on the internet.
Yeah, that's what I find that the biggest issue is. You know, we have to get to the crux of the issue. What is it? Is it the big corporations? Is it their fault, or is it the consumers? Now, my view is that I put the blame in the hands of the consumer, just through being damn right lazy and not actually finding out whether something's good for them or not, and just going along with it blindly. You know, we can't see ourselves as victims. I'm not big on that. You know, the poor humanity. You know, look at what's happening to us. We're just so defenseless against all of the bad guys. You know, peddling whatever concoction they want to put in our bodies next. It's us that are doing it to ourselves. And if we didn't buy into it, and if we didn't actually go along with it, then it wouldn't exist. So that for me is the issue. We can get rid of Coca-Cola and McDonald's and all that kind of thing, but we're still going to be open to influence, some kind of influence. So we have to start with us. We have to change us. Then everything else will change as a result.
So it's definitely be about being discerning. I mean, I spent many years in a developing country. I lived in South Africa for 16 years, and I saw the kind of creeping in of all the bad stuff and of the hamburger culture. But the traditional culture is very different. And on the whole, African people, rural African people, were like lean, healthy, glowing skin, because they grew their stuff in their backyard, you know, and they ate really well. They'd have a goat and slaughter that. But then you'd go to the urban areas and they lived off white bread, sugary drinks, because that was what was presented to them, and they didn't question that, you know. Massive difference, urban, rural, you know.
Wow.
Yeah, huge
That's
difference.
crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
So I think it's okay to start wrapping everything up.
Yeah, absolutely.
So thank you everybody for tuning in, and to our speakers, because that was just, you know, once again, awesome, great information. I hope this helps a lot of people out. We're leaving with, you know, new knowledge in our heads as well, on top of the knowledge that we already have been speaking about. And I hope that it's helped everybody that has been watching the International Health Conference. So I am going to say bye-bye from Alaska Xavier.
And see you later, guys. Thank you ever so much for coming. Everybody that's watching the replay, just make sure you comment #replay if you're watching this on Facebook. And everybody in here and any future speakers, obviously start preparing yourselves because we're going to be speaking to a huge audience in the very near future. So we've only just got started in this. Thank you so much for coming, and we'll see you again next time.
Thank you all. Have a good night and a day.
Bye.
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 Thank you guys. Bye.